We are live. That's a good sign. Then we are going to go to YouTube for the old test. Get that ready. There we go. Can we hear ourselves? To YouTube. Yes, we can. Fantastic. Copy the link. Share to group. Cool. And we are a go.
The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make
Don't
it.
take this home. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well way out. But he is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you go. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. We are back again for another episode in the Hall of Fame series, and of course that means the return of the co-host who is going for a record number of appearances on the LOC Report this year. How's it going, Coach Leach?
Yes, in one calendar year. I was just trying to think the last one that I missed. I think it was probably self-inflicted last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you didn't quite do all of the in-season ones. I did have a few guest stars here or there, but
I shouldn't have gone to America halfway through the year. Or actually, in hindsight now, I definitely should have gone to America. But yes, all's well. All is well here. So.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it. Yes, and as we will see in the draft video this year, Chris does much value his America visits for his fancy purposes. So definitely won't be doing that this year. So perhaps a bad year for Fudge Flies ahead.
Well, you say that. You know, that's it. It's not out of the question. That's it.
No, that's very true. Yeah, things are slowly opening up.
There's still
Yeah.
flights, and there's still time. You don't get quarantined for 2 weeks when you get back. Then then there's always a chance. But yes, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
There's a pretty window for it's going to happen.
Yeah, very true. We've got some league news to talk about, so let's not dilly-dally any further and tell you the league news. So the headline of every show from here until eternity is the draft date, which is, of course, Chris?
It's the 29th of August, Nate.
It is. Very well done. Put you on the spot there. 29th of August, circle it on your calendar. Chris has obviously not double booked himself and won't be drafting poolside in Croatia, but if you are, that's fine. Well, maybe not fine for certain reasons, but fine in terms of joining the draft because we can get you a video link.
That's for sure. I'll find a way. Regardless of where I am, I can be on my side of the road somewhere. I'll find a way.
Yeah, so 29th of August, that's a Saturday, probably to be in the afternoon or evening. Obviously, we are live. I don't think we have any viewers at the moment. Please do comment along if you would like to during this show. And our just typical, we've been doing an NFL sort of generic update each week with coronavirus and stuff. I did see one actually. They seem to drop an update every Wednesday just before we do the podcast. It's very convenient. It's not on my fantasy app, but I did see it somewhere that the NFL is considering a shortened preseason. Obviously, they haven't been able to do their normal minicamps and OTAs and things. All that's been done virtually, although players have been meeting up with each other informally. They are currently on schedule to report to training camp, which will be mid-end of July, I believe. But I know some states in America are kind of having a second wave, so I suppose that's keep an eye on as well. But back to what the actual news was. Shortened preseason, obviously, at the moment, Chris. We've had 4 preseason games and then straight into the season. And there's been talking about dropping it for, player safety reasons and whatnot. And just generally because they're a bit crap, really, aren't they?
That's it. And I think that if you halved it, because they're thinking about dropping them to 2, I think having 2 preseason games is fine. As you say, they don't play starters in them anyway. No. They don't play full reps. That's it. You let these guys from the international pathway come in for a few games. For us, fantasy-wise, it's a nightmare because you have some star players who occasionally go down in these games. So I think that all in, then they probably will go for this.
Yeah, for sure.
Give them a little bit more time on the practice field as well, which is what they need, rather than these. What's been bandied around as well, I think, is a lot of these combined practices, and I think that might be where they go for a longer period of time in the preseason this time. So yeah, I think from a purely fantasy perspective, we should be jumping for joy with this one.
Yeah, indeed. No one likes preseason games, be it fans, players, or really the NFL, because they don't make a great deal of money, I would think, from them. But just on the note, you said that there will be no combi practices this year, which a lot of coaches will be quite upset about, because that has become very much a staple. Yeah, it's just, limiting that exposure as much as possible. So they've already come out and said there will be no combined training or anything like that. Yeah. Short preseason on the cards. As you say, from an injury point of view, that's great. And that may well be here to stay, even when Corona has finally gone. So that's the NFL update. Nothing else at this stage on part. Basketball's coming back, though, in terms of other sports leagues. They are coming back at the end of July, I believe. I don't know if you've seen this. Yeah, NBA. They're doing it all in Orlando, I believe, in Disney World, no less. I don't know too much about it. I've seen little bits and pieces, but NBA will be back.
Oh, as if we needed any more basketball to have on every day of the week, because that's what it will be now, isn't it?
It's on Sky Sports, so it's going to be great. And in terms of for the NBA, actually, we're going off on a tangent, but why not? We have no other news. For the NBA, it's actually great, because the NBA is kind of, their season usually runs to, I think, when do they do the NBA Finals? I think the NBA Finals is usually June, maybe July. I can't quite remember. But there's the sort of, that dead period between, you've got baseball usually carrying you through until the NFL season starts. But other than that, there is nothing really apart from baseball from July.
Ice hockey fans will tell you that there is.
Ice hockey finishes in June, July, similar time to NBA.
But even so, this year, if you're the NHL, you're not going to do that.
Well, no, this is what I'm talking about. So the NBA, given that they're going to be resuming on the 31st of July, or whatever it is, their season is going to effectively end, I think, because it's an expanded kind of playoffs is what they're doing. So I think it ends in November, or it might even be the start of December, which would mean they'd need to start up again. They couldn't start straight away because NBA typically starts in, I think, December, November, something like that. Maybe even October, with the finals being June, July. But now that it gets pushed back, the NBA finals would go right up to next year, the preseason August, and that's they've expanded their window of relevance in effect, because where they would be finishing and letting baseball have it all by themselves, that they'll have the
as if the baseball season needed to be longer.
Well, no, the baseball season is being longer. Potentially, they're talking about coming back as well. I believe they've circled a date for mid-July, but they're having a lot of problems at the moment coming to terms over money, which is quite frankly hilarious.
Well, so if you're scheduling baseball, you think to yourself, you've got to get all these games in. The World Series are going to be played to like December at this rate.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be pushed back to
that. I mean, you could play it in the South, and it's not quite so bad.
Yeah. Well, it might even be longer than that, because yeah, they've not even started their season, and from March, the World Series is usually in November, I think.
Yeah.
So, God knows, they'll have a shortened season, but yeah, it's anyone's guess what that's going to look like right now.
Everyone wants to see the World Series on Christmas Day, don't they?
This is what they're saying about the NBA. The NBA, because they're going to, have to push back and start, they could realistically start near the end of the NFL regular season, literally have a Christmas kickoff almost in future.
Everybody wants to see that.
It would be a spectacle.
Christmas Day would be much better if you had that. If you had just wall-to-wall sport on Christmas Day, because it'll all start here in the afternoon anyway.
Yeah.
That's it. That would make life so much better on Christmas Day. There's nothing to do.
I must agree. Yeah, I do love a Christmas Day NFL game when they occasionally crop up. There's usually a Christmas Eve one
100%.
or something.
Boxing Day wouldn't be the same without football and NFL, would it now? So
No, absolutely not.
come on,
Absolutely
come
not.
on. Yes, if anyone from the NBA and in fact any professional league, I don't care what it is, you play on Thursday. I mean, the players might not like that, but that's it. We're not the players. The players aren't playing for themselves; they're playing for us.
Yeah, they get enough money that they can slam a Christmas.
Oh yeah,
Christmas
so they've had their
Day
break
game,
now.
it's fine. Celebrate Christmas another day. Why not? It doesn't really matter,
Yeah,
does it?
right.
Anyway, so that's enough talk about the general update, but there are lots of interesting things going on that front that you can go and check out in your own time. We are here to talk about something historical, not looking forward, because we are talking about Burdettinators nomination today, the one that mattered, his victory in Corona Bowl 5 versus Tuckfards, which was the first victory for Coach Burdett against Coach Merritt in Coach Burdett's career, which 5 years into the league is actually quite a statement, and was quite the run. It was quite poetic, so we'll go through it like we always do, paragraph by paragraph. I've also got some history up here that Chris can also see, as well as you, the viewer. We do have another viewer as well, so please do come along if you do want to. So, starting with the preamble in here, Chris, I know you've got some pointed opinions, which no doubt you will get your chance to put across. But starting across, I just talked about the start of this article, which I forgot to put in the comments, actually. I will do that at the end. How, there's been quite a handful of great teams. If you say great teams in the LOC, ones that spring to mind instantly are 2009 Burdettinators, where they obviously went 15-1. 2012 Tom's Tyrants, where they went 13-1 in the regular season, lost in the playoffs. But Burdettinator's team arguably deserves to be in the same argument, if not perhaps even has grounds to be above that, because they have set the all-time high record for points in a season, a total of 1729.5, which obviously now we know the league's changed since then. We've expanded and fiddled with the positions and points and whatnot. Not likely to be beaten, perhaps, ever. Certainly not. It would take a very good season to match those points. So, just on those metrics, you have to think, when you think 2013 Burdettinators, what comes to your mind, Chris?
Well, this is, then we'll come to this later, but the one thing that does spring to mind is Peyton Manning.
Yes, that is definitely a large part of the story.
That's the one thing that I come to, but I'm going to let you explain a little bit more, and then
Sure.
we'll come to the opinion piece later, because that's sort of part of my argument.
Sure, it's alright. So this nomination isn't for that season as a whole, which you may argue is arguably a stronger nomination, but this one is specifically for the game versus Phil, Corona Bowl 5. I mentioned in the paragraph that really it's a tale that appears in history many a time. I've picked out David and Goliath as a good one, because Phil did just own Ollie in those early years of the LOC, didn't he? That's it. If we got to this point, then yes. I can show you right now. I've prepared it. It looks slightly rosier than it used to, but you can see right there. Burdettinators now has a 4-10 record against the Tuckfards, and like I say, one of those was Corona Bowl 5. So even then, between now and 2013, he's only beaten 3 more times. It's one of the worst. I have a very bad one against Ben as well. We can see it bottom right there, 13-4. But I think out of everyone, it's probably among the worst win-loss ratios. We can see there, Ben assists surprisingly 3-10 against Ixan as well. But this historically was his bugaboo game, really, wasn't it? Back in the day.
Yeah, well, that's it. I just can't believe that a multiple Corona Bowl winning team has a record like that against a near rival.
Yeah,
that's, to me, it's crazy.
Yeah, and back in the day we did tend to play each other a bit more, and obviously we had the old rookie veteran division format, which I think other than when Ollie went down to the rookie division in 2011, he came straight back up, I believe, and they would have been in the same division for pretty much so they were playing each other a lot in those early years, whereas since of course, we play each other slightly less. But yeah, it does stick out like a sore thumb on Burdettinator's rap sheet there. There is no other team that he has anywhere close to such a bad record against. You know, we go back to the 2013 season. And, well, I should say before that, you know, we always circle the Tuckfards Burdettinators game on the schedule reveal, don't we? It's just one of those, you know, with these two have had the off-the-field rivalry as much as the on-the-field. Going back to Brookfield.
No doubt. I mean, it would be a marquee.
Yeah.
If we were doing, you know, on a regular week. It would take something quite exciting to beat that. So yeah, it's one of those you look forward to. Although, perhaps we shouldn't look forward to it quite so much. Based on those numbers, but hey.
Yeah, we do have some very yeah, you are right. It's the kind of I'm trying to think of a good example. You could say it's the Niners Cowboys of the 90s. You know, nowadays you say Niners Cowboys and you're like, really today it doesn't really get you fired up. But you know, back in the day that was a hot. But like you say, this is supposedly circled for different reasons. But, well, it's all about this nomination that we now look back on it so fondly. You know, you don't say, you know, a normal game where you say, oh, that guy's going to win pretty much all the time. You just write it off. But it's when you win a substantial one, that's when you get talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's what this nomination is for. So we'll look at the 2013 season as a whole because, as I said at the start, they have they just had a tremendous year. Record-breaking amount of points for the season. They had an 11-3 record, which, as we know, is very difficult to achieve in the LOC, even to get to double digits, let alone 11. If we just take a look at the season as a whole, I've got that up here. We'll start with the draft, actually. We'll start with the draft, because you've already said about Peyton Manning, which absolutely was a large part of Burdettinator's team, and I believe he's if he's not the top, he's got to be up there, the highest scoring fantasy player in the league, or our league, doesn't matter the year, probably the best season of any player. But Burdettinator's were very much more than that. They had an extremely good draft right through the first 5 picks. These guys were, you know, even getting it. We should have known it at the time where he took Marcus Colston, which is obviously a Tuckfards favourite. But it was just written in the stars. CJ Spiller had his game. Seahawks D were very good. T.Y. Hilton in the 9th is obviously a good value. Eddie Lacy was one of the picks of the year that year. You go back and listen to our podcast of best and worst picks of 2013. First of all, you're going to have to do a lot of scrolling to find that. But Eddie Lacy will absolutely be one of the best we talk about there. Tremendous draft, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the time. You look at the top, maybe the top 6, and in terms of hot QB receiver combinations at the time, see, Shady was at his peak, Reggie Wayne was at his peak in a quality team, Colston peak in a quality team.
I think you could even say, Des Bryant was, I don't think that was his rookie year. I think it would have been his at least second or third, but yeah, he was coming into his own there as well. Eddie Lacy's rookie year, which was actually probably arguably his best.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Peyton coming onto a career year that nobody really knew. The Legion of Boom years in Seattle. Yeah. I mean,
that was the year Seattle won the Super Bowl as well, of course.
Yeah. Names all over the place there. So
yeah,
and as you say, there is. If you look down into the later rounds, there are some guys who he picked up that made a massive contribution. Even likes of Malcolm Floyd, who
Malcolm Floyd, he was a solid guy back in the day for the Chargers. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. So it was solid all over the place. There's a few speculative ones that turned up that worked, I have to say that in terms of ability at the time, from where he was drafted, it was one of the best that we've seen, and it proved to be. Yeah,
and with this nomination, there's a lot of story to it. That's what makes this nomination, right? It's not, one current above 5. This is one of the more... It's what you have around the nomination that kind of makes the nomination what it is, because we all remember Phil absolutely heckling Ollie for drafting Peyton Manning in the 5th round, which was quite funny for many reasons, as we know, Manning's season, how it turned out, but look who was the first round pick of the Tuckfards that year. It's he sat there chuckling about Manning in the 5th round, and he's.
I mean, you look at that, and I. Yes, Drew Brees in the 1st. Well, I guess you can understand that at the time, but that's it. We haven't seen many QBs go in that round ever since.
No. I think we're smarter as a league now, and you don't see it. That we may get it yet again with a Lamar Jackson or a Patrick Mahomes. That they are certainly near the top of the board, but it does not happen nowadays in the LOC. Moving to looking at just the generic season as a whole for Ollie, we've got his accolades here. So 2013 is obviously what we're talking about. Regular season championship, obviously division championship, highest scoring team that year, won Coach of the Year award as well. So a very accoladed year. And if we look on the old almanac, we can see some other fun things about that season for Burdettinators. So team performance week, he had the best. You can see there in week 1, 164 points. I believe he had the highest play. He must have done yet. Peyton Manning with a 60-point game. Also in week 1 of that season, and then, as I said earlier, the highest amount of points, 1729. Tuckfards did come close the year after, and you in 2011, Chris, hold the second closest, but that just looks like it's a number that's not going to be broken. We had 1642 last year by Tom, but it is tough nowadays to really get above 1500, which is what you did last year. So
yeah, it is difficult, and you have to have, you can't just afford to have 2 players or 3 players. You have to have 5 that click across the course of the year. Yeah. And to average what he has to average to get to that, it's not easy anymore.
No.
Yes, those extra teams count for a lot, and yeah, you're right. We're talking before and after the expansion, I suppose, and yeah, that's it. That's those are the days we're not going to see again. So, yeah, maybe we're going to have to reorganise the statistics into pre and post expansion.
Like, yeah, we talk about it. Obviously, you look all time, and obviously some of the all time stuff, like you say, you've got to look at it comparatively. But we know when we're talking about them how to distinguish between them, and if we just look at that, I think that was the other point I made in the article. Obviously we have I don't save them from previous years because I haven't done, so I don't do it going forward, but we know about the bench score, and I'm pretty sure we could go through the game center game by game. We won't, but there were some very high bench scoring weeks for Burdettinators in that season from memory. So, that's what he got on the field. I shudder to think what he also left off of it, because it was just such a good year. If we just look at the regular season, he did actually start pretty slow. We're in the wrong year here. Apologies. Back to 2019. Let's go to 2013, please. Apologies, viewers. There we go.
The history on this is quite amazing.
Yeah, there is a lot there. It's a shame that it doesn't save the things like the other standings tabs, like the overall record and the bench points and things like that. But there is a great deal there, and I've saved a lot of it as well in the Google Drive just in case we do lose it. But you look down there. So we talked about the impressive week 1 already against ADRZ. It's just hundreds. Week 6 they had a bad week. Week 9 they had a bad week. And the only other game they lost where they, those are the only 2 games I think they dipped below 100 in the season, and the only other one was week 3 against the Tuckfards. They lost against the Tuckfards in the same season as well, which is always magical. We'll pick that game up, but just before we do that, incredible run of points there. We talk about the highest score as well, and you have 2 weeks of 77 and 82 and you still break the record. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I guess it'll average out across the course of the year, but
yeah.
And every good team has bad weeks. We
Yes.
always see that every single year. There isn't one team that can consistently get that over 100 every single week, because it's just so hard to do. And when that does happen, I believe that is Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But yes, that's it, and it's an extremely impressive set of results across the course of the year. And again, that underlines the craziness of this result, really, that we're about to see. Because it's almost as though this is week 3, and then come the end of the year, the roles are reversed massively.
Yeah.
Which is always a mark of a good team, the ones that get better over the course of the year.
Yeah, for sure. So picking out the week 3 game against the Tuckfards where they lost, you can see here the Drew Brees did have a great day. Jamal Charles was one of the great players for the Tuckfards that season, and Jordan Cameron, who knew, came in with a terrific day as well. And one other guy we didn't see on Burdettinator's draft was Julius Thomas. It's quite easy to forget now that we are quite a few years distanced from that season, but that was an amazing pickup. And as you say about having the quarterback and the receiver combo, Julius Thomas had a very good year that year, and that was a large part of Burdettinator's good season.
Yes, absolutely. That's it. I think that Peyton Manning obviously made that offense tick and absolutely hum that year. And any receiver on that team, as Phil's got with Welker on the side, had massive value in.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to the article then. So, not my email, please. The article is what I wanted, Nathan. There we go. So we talk about the season, and then looking closely at the Corona Bowls, we've highlighted already that Ollie's obviously never beaten Phil. He beat Nigel quite comfortably in the divisional round. You can see they're 130 to 110. And then we look at the Corona Bowl more closely. We'll look right at the start, because I'll never forget this one, purely because watching the games at home, I think Ollie was at his, he was going to come over to mine later. I always remember that you could see that spike right there, right at the start. Jamal Charles had 2 touchdowns before the end of the first quarter, and I got an insta-panic text from Ollie saying, he's going to go crazy, I'm going to lose the game because of Jamal Charles. And I was like, just calm down, it's a long game, it's only one player. But it was a tough start from Burdettinator's point of view, as you can see there, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I haven't been on the receiving end of one of these myself. Maybe not in the final, where it would be a bit more tense. But yeah, certainly in earlier knockout rounds, you do feel a little bit helpless at that point. And, I think you need a great deal of luck from there on in. But he needn't worry. I think when you got a team as good as that over a course of the year, you needn't worry too much what happens.
No, absolutely not.
There's going to be something to pick it up.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see there, that was the start of the 6 p.m. games, but by the end of the 6 p.m. games, it was basically a tie ball game, and it did not take long for that to change entirely. I think I've written down the exact points on the article, so we'll just go back to that and have a look. So, Tuckfards sprung out to a 25-10 lead, but they would basically be tied at the end of the first quarter. But then after that, the Burdettinator's would go on to rack up an additional 100 points, and was it? Sorry, no, it's in this paragraph. So wasn't an additional 100 points, but they got to the 100-point mark by the end of the 9 p.m. games, more or less. And then they went on to get another 60, while the Tuckfards only got another 23. So that they went from losing it early to just in the rear-view mirror, nowhere even close. And this is the highest scoring performance in the Corona Bowl. No one has scored as high as 161.5, and it's also the widest point disparity we've had in a Corona Bowl as well. Now, I know you have something to say about Phil's team, 97 points, but let's talk about Ollie's team first before we let you fully talk about this nomination, Chris. But lots of points scored on the left side of the board. They're not a single player under double digits, obviously highlighted by Peyton Manning.
What we like, that's the sort of bit that we like. I mean, if we're looking at this in just a cold light of day, and we're doing it in like we'd do a normal podcast, I suppose. We talk a lot about the value of having a huge amount of firepower at the top of your roster, or at the time anyway. It's a bit different now. But the top of your roster, when you've got 2 running backs and a quarterback that form that what we call the Holy Trinity, they will propel you and give you foundations to be able to do whatever you want. Ultimately, if you can have a quarterback and 2 running backs that week in, week out respond in that way and perform in that way, you can pretty much play whoever you want, but beyond that. And this is no exception. I mean, when you've got your top 3 combining there for 80 points or just over
90, pretty much. Yeah.
90. Is it, where are we at? 40. Yeah. It's 28. Is it?
Yeah.
40, 28, and 21. Yeah. Then you've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. And I think this is probably the reason why it was successful over the course of the year, was that those 3 were dominant at the time. Now, you can't say that Shady McCoy was dominant after that. You can't say that Peyton was dominant after that. That particular year, they just got those, and Eddie Lacy certainly.
Yeah, all of them.
So he picked those players at the right time in their career. They just, to get 3 players like that in one go is very rare. And you look down at his receivers, and they're just solid. They're just solid. That's it. That's all you can say. Des was in decent form at the time, and I think what we got. Is that Riley Cooper?
It is Riley Cooper.
Okay, cool. Josh Gordon just told us, there we go. That's better. I can read it. Phil Austin, the Seahawks. It's the epitome of solid, consistent players who, and you know their flaw. I mean, you look at Josh Gordon there. So that's a really weird stat line in the sense that it's, there's some receiving yards and some rushing yards in there, and then never to be seen again by another player that reached his peak in this year.
Yeah, I believe that crazy year was 2013, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then you look at that, and I think that that can't be said for the other side. So in some ways, Phil went big on his first round pick, and in many ways his first round pick didn't work out so well when it mattered most. His running backs were obviously extremely good, and say Jamar Chase was the guy. But after that, you can't say that any of those players really were solid, consistent players, either at the time or beyond. And that's the difference here between those 2 teams, is that you've got bona fide number 1, borderline number 2 receivers. On the other side, you've got borderline number 2 receivers on dodgy teams at the time.
Yeah.
And that's where the loss is. Now, here's the thing for me about this entire nomination, I suppose, is that if you'd have said to me the season as a whole is going into the Hall of Fame, I'd have gone great. You can't argue with that, because as a body of work, once again, like we've seen for the last couple of weeks, the body of work over the course of the year was absolutely sublime. It's something that you won't see again. It's something that was extremely good at the time and has aged well, and the team has aged well. The draft was good, and there were some mega performances in there. But you look at this Corona Bowl, and yes, it's the highest scoring one, and yes, it's a win over a team that they hadn't beaten for 5 years previously to this, or 5 seasons previous, but they haven't won many since. Neither have they played each other since in such a big game. If it's just a single game over the course of the year that we're trying to put in here, I feel as though it would just be a nomination with an asterisk. It would be this game, asterisk, but all of his 2013 season. So perhaps we should put it on here to say, well, if you want to change your thing to say your entire 2013 season, I got no problem with that, because that's one for the ages and one we won't see again, as we've just spoken about over the last little while. But one game and one game alone, where, let's be honest, that's it. the absolute juggernaut of the team steamrolled what was a team that, it got there, and then in classic sort of Tuckfards fashion, didn't quite do it when it needed to be done. I don't really see this as it currently stands anyway, as something that I can wholeheartedly say to you, vote for. But if the wording was changed ever so slightly, then I might change my mind.
Yeah, I think that's fair comments. Like, I think whenever, you are right to highlight, it's almost, I think the word is a dyad. By this point, we knew Phil in the playoffs was not a good product, let's say, because they made the playoffs 5 straight years from the outset, and this was the 5th losing result of those 5 years, and the second Corona Bowl loss in their career to that point. So you're right. It's you look at one side and say, well, yeah, you did have a great season, you did do well in the Corona Bowl, but the actual game itself, maybe you could have said, was already decided before kickoff. And you are right. It's while it's a very good performance and it does hold the record for amount of points in a Corona Bowl, and it's got the widest point disparity, as I already mentioned. You can bring that with the rest of the season in with that nomination, and it just makes it very compelling in its current format. I agree. It's a nice note for history, but it's not. You wouldn't talk about Corona Bowl 5 as something poignant in the LOC history. You talk about that game where he won by 0.2 points or whatever it was, or the other Corona Bowl where Tom beat Viv by 3 points. Those things spring out. Like your playoff game last year as well. Those are particular games where you can kind of draw something out. Yes, it's the highest scoring. That's pretty much all you can say about the individual game itself. Without the rest of the story behind it, never beaten Phil, that whole season, you're right, it doesn't stand on its own with the amount of weight there is around it.
No. That's it. And I think it's a nice personal milestone to be able to beat a team that you hadn't beaten before in the biggest game that you'd played in. That's great. That is a personal, I suppose, to Ollie, in the sense that it then pushed him on to be able to go and do things that he did afterwards. But yes, that's it. I cannot stress to you enough that I would never have, as you say, I never remembered that final had you have not brought this up in this pod. I wouldn't have read about it again. And yes, it's the highest scoring one. But yeah, as you quite rightly say, and that's a very good point. That's it. It might be the highest scoring one, but it may as well have been 110 to 97.
yeah.
10 as this was.
Yeah.
It may have been. It may as well. Because perhaps the one, if it wasn't for this season and how good it was, maybe he should have put forward the last Pro Bowl that he won, because that was one for the ages.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I think that there are stronger candidates out there as it currently stands. But this is the big but. Is that if you said to me, Russ, is that this is the nomination for the 2013 season of this team, absolutely no problems. I'm all in.
Okay, there you go. There you have it. And just one final note on this nomination show. It does make worth pointing out. Just if you put yourself in those shoes, perhaps, like you're entering the one that I suppose plus for this game is if you can visualize it from Ollie's point of view. At the time, it's 5:50 p.m. on a Sunday in December. You're about to play Phil the Corona Bowl. Imagine the mental. I've used the word difficulty here, but the fortitude, the pressure. You've never beaten this person you're playing in the most important game in the league for you to date. Yes, it was a momentous season, but we know in the playoffs it's when I'll go home and anything can really happen. But he did come through. He did defeat the White Whale, and he did hoist his first Corona Bowl, which we now know is first of two. So it is up to you, voters, who you want to put in the Hall of Fame. We have discussed our points and put them across. It is entirely up to you how you view it. But that is all we have for Burdettinator's Hall of Fame nomination. We will be back, of course, next week with another one. You doing anything, Chris? I'm sure you're not going anywhere, or, just...
I wish.
Although good stuff. Let's hope our work doesn't finish you off by that point either.
No, I'll be all right. I'll still be here. Just about. Even if I'm here with one eye and sweating one out.
Luckily, the sun has gone away, so you do not have to contend with the blinding anymore.
Absolutely, that's one thing I can. I don't have to sweat one out in here with that. Crikey.
All right then, viewers. With that, we will leave you to it. So I hope you have a good rest of your week, and we will be back at a similar time next week. Goodbye.